Great stuff. So we're on 11 o'clock, Celeste, and we've seen quite a few people come in, so we are ready to go. So on to Celeste. I'm very excited to introduce this lady. I always call her this. She's got this insatiable bundle of energy around her.
Thank you,
And,
Dar.
and Celeste is an employer branding and recruitment marketer, and she works specifically with heads of human resources to integrate their employer branding strategies. And she is, as she mentioned earlier in her intro, she's very, very passionate about it, and I know this firsthand. She's the founder and MD of Employer Branding Africa, and she's a seasoned specialist consultant. She's a facilitator, and of course, today you'll see her as a speaker. She's coached so many brand leaders across big companies, and these include some of the big names like TFG, Capitec, Ackermans, and of course, Cape Town Tourism as well. And so today in her talk, she'll discuss why exactly employer branding and marketing is so crucial in the competitive global talent market. So please join me in welcoming this wonderful lady, Celeste, by using the round of applause button on the bottom right-hand side of your screen. Thanks, Celeste. Over to you.
Thanks very much, Dar. Will you just make sure that you can you see my screen, or am I sharing the wrong one? Because I'm terrible with technology.
So we can see your screen. It's got both the Remo
Oh,
screen and the your presentation on the left-hand side.
hold on a second. Hold on a second. So let me go to present document. No, sorry.
So, so
There's
if you
a share
minimize,
screen. There's a share screen.
yes. And if you minimize the screen on the right-hand side, it's right on my side, the one that
Oh,
shows
there we
the
go.
Remo, yeah, and you
Okay.
should have all of it show on your presentation, yeah.
Hold on a second. Let's see. Yeah. Voila.
Hey, there we go. Thanks, Celeste.
Okay. Yippee, yippee. All right. There we go. Okay, wonderful. Thanks so much for the introduction, Di. I really appreciate it. And it's lovely seeing you and seeing a lot of familiar faces. Well, for faces, I just see little circles here. And once again, Audria, thanks so much for providing me with the opportunity to actually spread the word of employer branding and how important it has become, especially through the pandemic and as well as the post-COVID pandemic situation that we're in. I know I'm addressing different levels of talent scouts and talent leaders here today. There could be newbies, there could be really, really seasoned ones, but I'm going to be talking very much at all levels in terms of what your understanding is about the global talent market, where we're sitting at the moment, as well as employer branding and how does this actually play such an integral part at the moment with how you are recruiting. Understanding that recruiters and your high demand tech talent is really, really sought after, not just in Africa, but globally. So I'm going to have to speak very quickly because I'm only limited with 30 minutes. I could speak to you the whole day, but I know Audria won't be appreciative of that. But the first thing we're going to look at is really about the African labor market trends and the global similarities, because believe it or not, there are similarities, irrespective of us having a high unemployment rate and the rest of the world really being driven by a candidate market. We're going to talk about reinventing talent to address our eternal human capital challenges, which you are all privy to at this point in time. Why employer branding and marketing matters, and the untapped opportunities that talent leaders are not actually capitalizing on. And where do now, that's very, very high level because one can take a deep dive, and employer branding is very broad, the topic in itself. And then the solution, the quick wins. Where do we go? Where do we start? So I think it's no secret to anyone that we are sitting in quite a contradictory labor market as it stands. We've got this high unemployment rate, But yet we can't find the talent to fill the roles because everyone's moving into the tech space and everyone is looking for highly skilled tech people, tech talent, as well as recruiters, in fact. And we've got a workforce that is unemployable. So we've got a bit of a gap here. In saying this, the rest of our globe is also faced with challenges, and the unemployment rate might be lower in other countries globally, but they are sitting with the challenge, as we know, of the Great Resignation, where candidates are basically re-looking at their purpose, their belonging, their work life, etc., and they've become quite a choosy bunch. So also not very easy to fill these jobs. So what does that mean? It means that we're sitting with a common eternal human capital problem, with every country faced with political, economic, social, technological, and challenges. If we have a look at the Ukrainian war, we have a look at our recent KZN floods we've had, every country is faced with this, and this obviously impacts on the human capital and the labor industry that we work within. As I mentioned, we've got this high demand of scarce skills, the mismatch of unemployable talent, and we've also got an aging population where companies are having to be quite proactive and premeditated in how they are going about putting succession plans in place in order to ensure that they don't lose their people too quickly, the retirees and the alumni, but keep them on board in order to also mentor the newcomers, the new generation that's coming in. There is still that fear about the automated and technological environment. Whilst it has got its advantages, most certainly, and it's assisted us through the pandemic, at the same time, people have still got this fear of whether they're going to be replaced or not. We're sitting with a workplace of 5 different generations, and we've got different appetites. We've got different wants and needs, and we've got different communities that we are having to appeal to. So we have to be that much more calculating in how you go about looking for talent. It's not just putting a bum in seat. It's about thinking it through quite carefully. We've also got the rise of the alternate workforce, and people might say, what is the workforce? This really encompasses all your people that are looking at doing freelance, gig, contract, temporary work. And that's also creating a little bit of a challenge, because now you're building an employer value proposition that has to be speaking to certain, not only generations, but also a certain type of workforce that's looking for different needs. And there cannot be a disconnect between your freelance and what you're offering them versus your permanent workforce, because then you're going to cause a bit of a riot. At the moment, or not at the moment, but just generally, the shift into the remote workplace environment, it was shell shock for everyone. Yes, it was. And it hasn't actually gone away. The reality is that we still have problems with leaders trying to manage remotely. There's that level of trust that's also, questionable between employees, leaders. There's also that question that I'm finding in some of the clients I'm working with around fairness. I'm not allowed to actually work remotely, but how come my co-workers are? So it's about how to articulate that when you are recruiting. The exposure of diversity, equity, and inclusion is very much prevalent and on top of the agendas of many companies. And we cannot move away from the fact that we are living with a big social divide, especially here in Africa. And the fact that whilst you might give employees the opportunity to work remotely, how conducive is the environment for them to be able to work remotely? And what kind of support are you giving them? Yes, it's also provided opportunity in that women have got more flexibility to be able to do home studies and lift schemes, etc. And it's also provided opportunity for people that are not mobile and possibly disabled to be able to now work in a comfortable work or home space environment and have some kind of worth and value that they can offer. The urgent need to upskill and reskill is being addressed by many companies, and we've seen copious amounts of research, blogs, articles that are affirming this. At the end of the day, people need to be upskilled. As we continue working in a remote environment, we need to become more IT savvy. And this has to be done as a matter of urgency in order to address the world we're working in. Interesting fact is that we do at the moment have recovering industries. And whilst retail, restaurants, hospitality and traveling hemorrhaged quite badly when it came to the amount of people that they lost and are still trying to claw back and recover, the fact of the matter is, as long as we don't have any more detrimental progression with the fifth wave, etc., they will continue recovering, albeit at a slow pace. The banking, finance, and insurance and real estate sectors also starting to show some improvement, and this was these insights came through from the Manpower Outlook study that came through. So the question is, how are we going to reinvent talent to meet these demands? And I'm actually just contextualizing this before we start talking about the employer brand and how it speaks to these challenges. Companies are looking at the alternate workforce. They're looking at the alternate workforce because of the fact that they are looking for skills that they can plug in order to meet their company objectives. So with the low birth rate and the lack of skills, where do they have to turn to? They're looking at the alternate workforce, even if it is on a contract, freelance, or gig basis. A lot of companies are actually looking at not putting their people out to pasture too quickly and are bringing them in to coach and mentor the emerging generation that's coming into the workforce. And I think this is a fantastic concept, because at the end of the day, why let all that fantastic IP and knowledge leave an organization, years and years of knowledge and wealth of experience, when these people can actually work in favor of the organization and start grooming incoming new generation. There's also been a strong focus on boomerangs, ex-employees grooming them to come back into the market or come back into the organization because they're more than likely culture fit, they've gained additional experience elsewhere, and they are well known. So it's that old analogy, better the devil you know than you don't know. Companies are also looking very strongly at power skills, and don't underestimate how important power skills are, because moving into a virtual environment takes certain behaviors, certain competencies, and also the agility to be able to upskill and to actually start progressing and moving with organizations that are trying to repurpose themselves into this new way of work. It also takes personality and competencies of decision-making, communication, virtual collaboration, and there's an endless amount of competencies that come into play. So have a look at that when you start recruiting as well for talent. That's what companies are looking for over and above possibly the technical skills. Whilst transferring skills from one industry sector to the next is not every company's cup of tea, I think there has been a stronger focus on this as well. because of the fact that they have had to do that, because of the skill shortage. And taking people out of an industry sector and moving them from, say, hospitality into finance, there's no reason why it cannot happen if you've got the right training in place and the career and the development and the succession and planning in place. Internal mobility is a strong factor. And again, do not retire and rehire. Rather have a look at upskilling and training your people. They are hungry for it. As much as they are hungry for it, it's important for you as employers to also develop these people and ensure that you're embedding the EVP of continuous learning and development on an ongoing basis. Do this in order to fill your critical roles as opposed to looking outside your organization. So with this all being said, a strong employer brand is essential in order to compete, whether it be to internalize that EVP in terms of retaining your people, or whether it be to compete for all these different other methods of filling the gaps that you're looking at trying to fill. So our more progressive countries and companies are a long way down the line, although they still have not perfected it. The fact of the matter is we're sitting here with research statistics that confirm how employer branding has assisted talent scouts and HR managers and the rest. 80% of talent acquisition managers believe that employer branding has in fact assisted them with their whole talent acquisition strategies. And these are coming from credible sources like LinkedIn. The number one obstacle for many candidates is the fact that they don't know enough about the organization when it comes to you as recruiters trying to compete to secure them as a possible future employee. So that is all part of employer branding. Why are you keeping it as a best kept secret when in fact you should be exposing that, you should be upselling it? 50% more qualified applicants are coming through because of a strong employer brand as well. Why? Because they're informed. Why? Because you are no stranger. They trust in your brand. 78% will investigate a company's reputation like we would do if we're doing online shopping. We have a look at the reviews and the reputation. 86% job seekers will research an employer's reviews before they look at the trusted voice of candidates and employees before they decide to apply for a role. And job seekers say the reputation of a company is very, very important as an employer. And in fact, I mean, there's endless amounts of statistics to actually bed this down. 9 out of 10 candidates would apply for a job when it's from an employer brand that they know, trust, and connect with. So why is employer branding more important than? Employer branding has always been overlooked for some other reason. And I don't know if it's because there is a misunderstanding around it. Everyone's got different definitions. Some people are doing pockets of excellence of employer branding and initiatives in parts of the business, but they just cannot pull it all together. But now with South Africa and Africa being part of the global workforce, it is essential that, especially with us working in a remote environment, that you do not lose sight of the fact that you are competing on a global stage. You are vulnerable now to having your staff poached from someone in Poland, in India, and anywhere else. That's the reality of it. And likewise, your people that you are hanging so desperately onto, that you need to affirm your EVP is the best in the land so that they don't look elsewhere, is also looking elsewhere across the globe. So what are you doing about it in terms of reinstating and embedding that? At the same time, with our high unemployment rate and the fact that 60% of our country's economy is made up of startups and SMEs, these guys are also looking at employing. They are also looking for talent. So you're faced with that competition as well. And some candidates very well will work for a smaller organization because there's agility, there's quick thinking, there is other assets associated to that employer brand versus maybe a large legacy brand. So you cannot lag behind. Employer branding is a universal HR best practice. And if you're not using it and you're trying to compete with the likes of the USA, the UK, Australia, and other countries, you're going to find it extremely difficult because these guys are quite far down the line. They are very progressive. So what are you doing about this? The opportunity is there. The opportunity in order to quickly target and hire the right candidates for the right jobs is made possible through a strong employer brand focus. You need to attract, you will attract as well a higher caliber of individual as well. Yes, you will always have high volumes because we have got that desperation within our country of unemployed individuals. But if you craft your employer value proposition and your message correctly, you should be able to attract the right and repel the wrong. It's all about the content. It's all about how you are shaping your brand and telling people upfront, you are not right for this role because this is what we do. Or that person might decide to say, sorry, I can't work well under pressure. I'm actually not going to apply for that role. Okay, so at the end of the day, it's all about how you are shaping your brand and informing your brand out there in the marketplace. It also transforms the hiring process into a cheaper and faster practice because they are looking at themselves and saying, I don't think I'm right for this role, or they're asking too much, this company. So it basically is assisting you with the recruitment process. A noticeable and a relatable brand helps you stand out between your passive candidates. There's no two ways about it. But you have to do this. You have to do this before you start hiring. You can't start promoting your job opportunities and think people know about your brand. Assume, no matter how well established your brand is, it's changing all the time, and so are the candidate needs. So be clear on what you offer so that you're not wasting people's time and they are not wasting your time. I always say, think like a consumer. Think about the online shopping that we have been doing when we were in complete lockdown. What was that experience like? Product marketing is no different to employer brand marketing. And the experience is very similar. Every week, I have to feed my 2 adult girls. I go into the shop. I think employer brand. Yes, I have to go and fill the fridge and I buy products. But I'm always looking at the individual that's actually behind the product. At the same time, if we have a look online, what are the brands that actually stand head and shoulders above everyone else? They're the ones that are recognizable. They're constantly in your face. They're communicating. They are interesting. They're informative. They're competitive. They are compelling. They're attracting your attention. And how do these brands reach and connect with you? They are constantly in your feeds. You're receiving outbound mailers. You are seeing reviews on how good or bad they are. Word of mouth referrals is so strong, and it could be through candidates, it could be through employees, it could be through social networks. So how are they connecting and reaching you? And what are they telling you? Are they telling you interesting news? Are they shaping their brands in terms of recent mergers, accolades, the edge they have on the competition, exciting information, employee-generated content that's basically telling you about what's happening within the organization? Because if they're not, it's the best kept secret and you're not going to be known as a brand. And what is your shopping and your purchase experience like? And I know that the candidate experience has been spoken about and researched about and webinared about and bandied about so much. But the long and the short of it is, like anything, the customer experience is going to position you and set you aside from the rest. You might be a commendable social media brand on social media, but when they actually touch your brand, whether it be from a technological perspective and how frictionless your applicant tracking system is, or whether it be someone actually speaking to you, the human voice, what kind of experience are they receiving? How responsive are those turnaround times? Are your problems being resolved immediately? Is it merely a transactional exchange of communication, or is there a bit of empathy? Is there an emotional connection? What is actually that experience like? And then, would you return, whether you were successful in securing that role or not? Would you actually return and apply to that company again for another job? And what kind of review would you actually leave? And what kind of word of mouth discussion would you have with the next person that you bump into? 80 to 90% of talents say a positive or negative candidate experience can change their minds about a role or a company. Think about that. Think about that. That is so, so profound. It's no different whether you are thinking consumer buying or whether you are looking at as a candidate or putting yourself in the candidate's shoes that's experiencing your brand firsthand, or maybe as a returning applicant. So where do you start in order to elevate? Now, there's a long story behind this, and I'm not going to go through it right now, but it starts with you. High level, it starts with you. As talent scouts, you need to start thinking differently. It's no longer transactional. You are an advisor. You are a talent advisor, and you need to pride yourself in that. Look at the self-worth that you have to offer an organization. Why are companies wanting to recruit you? Because they see the value in you. But it does not stop at just being transactional. You are an influencer. You are a marketer. You are a brand advocate. You are more than just putting bums in seats. So look to yourself first and have a look at the value that you are bringing to your organization. Proactive planning prior to recruiting. And I'm sure you've heard about this as well. People touch your brand before you are going out there and looking to fill a role. You need to feather the nest. You need to lay that foundation. You need to fight with your decision makers for budget, because you need the budget. If they want to find really, really good talent, they need to give you the budget to be able to pave the way. Just like consumer marketing. It's not just a once-off promotion. It's ongoing awareness and it's proactive planning. Content is king, as they say. The manner in which you are actually putting yourself out there and shaping your brand is so, so important. Candidates are choosy these days. They need to know what they are getting in return to what they are expected to give. This is how we repel the wrong and attract the right. But it can't be a guessing game. You need to be quite deliberate in how you're putting it out there. Your target audience, we spoke about the 5 different generations. They all have different appetites. They all have wants and needs. And you need to be quite specific around developing the kind of DNA you're looking for, the kind of personality you're looking for. Otherwise, you are going to miss the boat. You're going to waste people's time and you're going to waste your time as well. The tools are plentiful. It's about being innovative and creative. There's a lot of clutter on social media at the moment because we're all moving into a remote virtual environment. So how are you standing out there above the rest? Is it a boring old static ad, or are you making the effort of putting a script together for your recruiter, or as a recruiter, being able to articulate what your future role is that you're trying to fill? Is it interactive? Is it engaging? Is it exciting? What does it look like? We've got the technology and the tools to be able to do that. And where I feel most talent leaders suffer or are actually missing the opportunity is the monitoring and the listening and the learning. We're too busy selling and forced feeding and trying to fill those roles. Yes, there's a rapid pace. It's an urgency. I know that you guys are working at a very, very fast pace continuously. But stop and listen, because your talent have got so much insights to offer you, whether it be a candidate or whether it be an employee. Am I running out of time?
Hi, Celeste. Yes, we're just over time, and I was hoping we could take 1 or 2 questions also. But I'm sure you're heading into wrap up anyway.
Okay. All right. Let me just, and then measure. So can I just close with this? Because I think it's very important. I think recruiters can only win. At the end of the day, the challenge is that people they see employer branding as a hot and fluffy. It's no longer that. They actually need to know that it is very, very achievable. And it's about the content. It's about showing the personality and implementing beforehand what their territory is all about and why you're a commendable brand of choice. So, sorry, I got a bit carried away there, Diane. You know, I always do. That is the challenge and that is the solution. The results is be seen and start working on content and visibility so that when they get that outbound mail coming their way, you're a trusted brand. Okay. And Audrey said, I'm allowed to say this, I'm running a training course in June and July. The one is around employer branding and marketing for talent acquisition specialists. And the other one is around how to build an employer value proposition and a brand from ground up. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Celeste. Can we please give Celeste a round of applause? Your button on the bottom right. Thank you so much. It's really given so much food for thought, especially if you're an employer who's trying to get into the market now, Celeste. And of course, as you said, a recruitment specialist, because the game's changed so much over time. So thank you so much. We'd love to, if you don't mind us taking 2 questions here, 2 top questions that we've got here.
Absolutely.
So the first one, Celeste, is from Jodine Thomas. She says, how do we navigate between the advancement of technology, mentor placement, and retaining skills?
Okay, that is quite a big question. Is it on here? Just say that again. I just want to have a look at it.
Sure. So under the Q&A, what Jodina said is, how do we navigate between the advancement of technology, mentor placement, and retaining skills?
Okay. I think it's an interesting question, that because under all three, it's about tailoring to the individual. It's about really understanding that individual first. And I think again, what level is that individual at? And what is the support? What is the tools that they are needing in order to be able to advance their skill set within technology? The mentorship, how closely do they need to be mentored? So I hope I've answered your question, but it is really about tailoring according to that individual, which many companies sometimes lose sight of. It's always that blanket approach.
And I think the next question may even link into that also, as you said, the different skills levels, Celeste. So Malebo Mpepele says, employer branding versus the high unemployment rate in South Africa. Does EVP play a role, or are people just looking for a job, period?
No, 100%. And, that question often comes up is, why do we have to promote our employer brand when we've got such a high unemployment rate? There's an art and science behind employer branding, and it's about really shaping that message, shaping that content. And it's not, again, all about social media and writing content for social media. It's about how your recruiters actually are empathetic and emotional, and coaching and mentoring and guiding that individual without being left wounded, to be able to still keep you in high regard, but also understand, what do they do as an individual? What are their other options? Where else do they go? That's all part of employer branding. It's all part of nurturing the individual, but also ensuring that your employer brand is kept intact, because it has a knock-on effect to your holistic corporate ID or your corporate brand as well. You're on mute, Di.
Thanks, Celeste. Yeah, and I think what you've said also kind of links into the last question, which was really, how does demotivated employees affect a company brand? I think that's kind of also what you touched on there. I'm not sure if you want to expand on it.
Yeah, you're demotivated. At the end of the day, the focus always starts internally, and you need to, as a matter of urgency, ensure that cannot be fueled. You cannot go out and that you're a fantastic employer brand if you're not actually doing your housekeeping at home first. And you need to get onto that as a matter of urgency. You need to diffuse that.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much, Celeste. Everybody, can we please just give another round of applause to Celeste Sarah? Thank you so much, Celeste. That's been wonderful.
Thanks very much.
Lots of food for thought.